9:12 is our time, and it's good to have our friend Dan Wos back on the air with us. Dan is, of course, the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, and Dan has been doing some other things as well, including a follow-up to Good Gun, Bad Guy. We're going to talk with him about some of the issues facing those folks of us, those of us who are firearms owners, and some things that possibly we are looking at for the future. Certainly with some things that have happened in regard to the military and this bipartisan deal on gun control that just scares the daylights out of a lot of folks from what I've heard already. And we're happy to bring him back here on the airwaves of News Talk KRMS. Dan Wos, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, KB, thanks for having me back on your show.
Absolutely. I want to get the conversation started. First, we talked just briefly about this off the air. You are the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, but you're doing a follow-up to that particular book, and you're in the process of working on that right now. Tell us a little bit about it as we begin our interview this morning.
Well, it's called Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. And I realized that there was a lot left unsaid from the first book, and this talks more about media manipulation and really gets into some deep stuff. So it goes further. It goes farther, further than the first one did. And it's already, the people who have read the manuscript now are just they're going crazy over it. So I'm pretty excited about it. My editor, Bill Dolan, is doing a fantastic job, and so I'm real happy. I can't wait. We're shooting for a Christmas release, so it should be available very soon.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, once you get that all put together, make sure we get a copy so we can get you back on to talk about the book. But definitely a good read. The first one was a great read, and I'm sure the second one, with an opportunity to do some follow-up and some more in-depth about the anti-gunners that are out there. Speaking of which, I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this in the last 24 hours, a bipartisan deal on gun control. Bipartisan deal on gun control. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people don't like the sound of that. I've just was kind of curious if maybe you'd heard anything about it, had some time to look it over a little bit, and maybe get your thoughts on that to start the discussion here this morning.
Yeah, I have looked at a few things on it. It is, anytime you hear something like that, it is scary. States don't, see, here's where it starts off, is states don't always comply with the federal regulations and stuff. So there's a NICS system, and the states don't always implement their mentally disturbed or incapacitated people into that NICS system, which is why sometimes you get people who fall through the cracks. It's not necessarily. It doesn't look to me like it's necessarily a new deal. What they're trying to do is encourage the states to input the mentally disabled or mentally incapacitated people. So right. What happens there, where it gets scary for me and a lot of gun owners, is who determines whether or not somebody has a mental issue. Do the doctors determine this? Does the pharmaceutical industry determine this? We should probably talk about all the drugs that people are on, why they're on them,
exactly.
Are they necessary, and there's a whole host. So this conversation gets really complex, and we'd have to break it down into sections. But overall, that's my initial thought on this.
Well, I was reading through it just briefly, and you mentioned, you go back to talking about the pharmaceuticals and the myriad of pharmaceuticals that are out there these days, and all of these things that people have an opportunity to take for one reason or another. And if you're like me, you sit there and you're just blown away when you watch these commercials on TV about these various pharmaceuticals. It's specifically going to do one thing for you, but all the adverse effects are just unbelievable. You talk about things like amnesia, depression. If you have suicidal thoughts, who in the world would want to take something with the potential of maybe having suicidal thoughts, or making, if they are depressed to begin with, just making it worse, just to take care of some little skin problem or issue like that? It just seems like when they're talking about with a lot of these drugs, with a lot of these pharmaceuticals that are out there today, that it's for something almost, to me, that I would consider nonsensical for some of the ones that are out there. But the adverse effects and the things that they talk about, and certainly, I mean, if you're talking about somebody who owns firearms and they're on some of this medication, how it could cause them to maybe look at life a little differently, and certainly then we hope it doesn't happen, but the possibility of getting involved in a situation where a firearm might come into use or to play or something like that at this particular point. So again, I always worry about things like that when I hear some of these pharmaceuticals and hope, or some of these commercials for the pharmaceuticals, and hope that people are really paying close attention to the adverse effects of a lot of this medication that's out there. And going back to what you were talking about, certainly with people who have mental issues, and we saw that obviously with the shooter in Texas that killed 26 people. But that was something that should have been picked up, or more than likely, I think, needed to be picked up on a couple of different levels. Number one, with what was going on in the military, and then number two, when this person got out of the military and returned to civilian life. I mean, there were all kinds of red flags that people missed on this guy. So again, we talk about guns being involved in certain things. It could have been a hammer, it could have been a knife, it could have been a car. We've seen instances and heard instances of all these. It just so happened this guy had a gun and went into this church and killed these people. But doing a better job, being more thorough in terms of determining someone's mental capabilities, especially if they're having issues in a place like, say the military, for example.
Yeah, well, you talked about you hit on a bunch of things right there. One of the things I just made a little note here I wanted to get back to was you talked about the adverse effects of some of these drugs. Now, I'm certainly no expert in that field. I don't want to comment too much on that because I don't know. I'm not a doctor. What I do know a little bit about is propaganda and how it works. You talked about all the TV commercials. When I see those TV commercials, I turn the channel. I know what they're for. I know why those commercials are on TV all the time, and I know that they are to influence people to accept these type of drugs, where it becomes more acceptable in our daily lives in our society. Oh, everybody's on drugs. It also, those propaganda commercials work to influence the doctors who prescribe them. So that's a real scary thing there. When you start to convince society that taking drugs like this is okay, that's the downfall to our logical thinking and our society in general. So that's the problem right there. I don't like the propaganda because it falsely influences people in a bad way. So, and then what was the last thing you said, Kevin? Kevin, I can't remember.
Talking a little bit about the military and some of these red flags with people that have mental issues and how some of this stuff should have been picked up on. In obviously the shooter down there, there were a number of different issues as far as experiences that this particular person had when they were in the military. Certainly some issues, some domestic issues when the person got out of the military and returned to civilian life that nobody really picked up on. And I was saying that, trying to evaluate someone who has mental issues, if obviously the signs were there, but, making sure that these people are thoroughly looked into before, something like this happens. If that can be done, Dan, because there were a lot of people that interacted with this guy, both in the military and in civilian life, and nothing was ever done. Nobody ever said, hey, maybe we ought to sit this guy down and reevaluate him and talk to him a little bit and kind of find out where he's at and what type of mental capacity he has at this particular time. Our
generation, you and me, or the generation before us, I think really held very high regard in what doctors orders. Okay, in other words, whatever the doctor says, that's gospel. Well, our generation, I think we're starting to think a little bit differently about this because they, with the most recent push for clients, doctor patients, to list whether or not they're gun owners, whether or not there are guns in the house,
right,
and all this stuff. And there was a group of doctors pushing it. I think they're pushing it hard out of Florida. I can't remember exactly where that was from. Pushing to find out who's got guns in the house. Okay, number one, I don't trust them. And number two, it's none of their business. And number three, why? Why are they so interested? Is it really to save lives? You know, does this come down to saving lives, or does it come down to some sort of gun control? So this is the area where so-called gun control, which is actually human control, gets tied in with the pharmaceutical industry and with mental health. And if they play it right, they can have a very strong hold on the people of this country. That's what I'm scared of. So it's not okay to give doctors any authority in this area. I think there needs to be checks put in place so that doctors don't overstep their authority, I guess, or you call it their authority. I'm looking for another word, but that's where it gets. Geez, I hope I explained that clearly, because it's a complicated circle there. When you get that pharmaceutical industry with the doctors, with the mental health, and with the want for gun control from the left.
You know, well, I think the thing about it, and you referred to it when you started talking about it, is forever, for years. We always think, you know, to this day, I think I still do in a lot of cases, but that the doctor, whatever doctors say is always right. And as far as the advice that they give, or they say, well, you know, that guy is, a little off his rocker or what have you. We tend to believe everything that the doctors say. And then, of course, you, as you mentioned, back it up with what's going on with the pharmaceutical industry. And that's like a 1-2 punch. And so, again, these folks are looking at trying to get more information out of us and then use that information against us. I mean, you know, you look at the prescription drug monitoring program that a lot of states have now in order to keep people that might be out there doctor shopping to get the opioids if they're addicted on the opioids, and that information is supposed to be kind of kept under wraps. Nobody is supposed to have any access to it. Well, I don't know if you realize this or not, but the Las Vegas shooter, after that incident had occurred, apparently there was, I guess, a newspaper there in Las Vegas that was able to obtain the information on him about the different type of medications that he was on. And that's not supposed to be something that's readily available.
Yeah, with these medications, you know, people talk about heroin being a problem. I don't think heroin's as much of a problem as the pharmaceutical opioids that are being prescribed to patients, because once they're off of that and they can't get them or they don't have enough of it, they tend to go toward heroin, toward street drugs. So, you know, I think the street drugs are getting the blame for this, but I don't know that. I think the cause is something else. I think the cause goes deeper into that. And just as a side note, just to be clear, you know, nobody wants crazy people to have guns. I think most gun owners are pretty clear on that. As a matter of fact, the NRA had a big part in creating the NICS system, and it was designed for that purpose. Keep the bad guys. You know, if there's going to be restrictions, let's put them on the bad guys, and let's put them on the people who are mentally, you know, unstable. Don't put them on the guns, because the minute you put regulations on guns, you're affecting millions of good people, and that's not okay.
9:26 is our time. Our guest is Dan Wos. Dan, we need to step aside and take a quick break. We'll come back and talk some more with Dan, and we'll take your phone calls this morning, 302-7000, 877-330-1150. Again, Dan Wos, our guest, the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, and he is working on a follow-up to this particular book. Good Gun, Bad Guy, I believe part 2 is the way he phrased it. We'll kind of talk maybe a little bit more about that once we get into things, because, Dan, you touched on a couple of things as you were talking about the book, especially the media and the propaganda aspect of what goes on in this country as well. We'll talk more. It's the Morning Magazine on KRMS.
Don't spend your time handling that heavy boat cover with all those snaps and ropes. Get a Midwest touchless boat cover that covers your boat in literally seconds, and you never have to touch the cover. You'll enjoy those boat rides you would never have taken before, and it's easy to cover your boat every time you use it for every boat, from pontoons to 60-foot cruisers. Visit MidwestBoatCovers.com or call the nation's #2 dealer at 877-DR-COVER. That's 877-DR-COVER.
Hi, this is Jeff Smith with Alpha Graphics and Alpha Custom Apparel. We're the Lake's full-service, one-stop printer that can handle all of your printing, custom apparel, and promotional product needs. From business cards to business shirts and bandanas to brochures, we can make you and your business stand out. Our in-house design team can put your imagination on paper, apparel, and/or social media. State-of-the-art printing equipment gives you the highest quality finished products with a quick turnaround time. We have the best printing prices in town and can meet all of your printed needs, including rack cards, posters, and full-size banners. Our printed products are produced locally and support the Lake area. Alpha Graphics and Alpha Custom Apparel is locally owned and operated in Osage Beach at 1140 Industrial Drive. Stop by and see us or give us a call at 348-5900 for a free quote. For all your printing needs, Alpha Graphics and Alpha Custom Apparel are here to help you increase your reach.
Join JJ's at the Copper Pots Wine Dinner on Wednesday, November 29th, beginning at 6 p.m. and by reservation only. A one-of-a-kind experience of food, wine, and friendship. Call JJ's at 374-8077.
At Big O Tires, we'll do whatever it takes to earn your business, and we mean anything. We'll even walk over a bed of hot coals. When it comes to tires, we offer all major brands. Service, we'll bend over backwards. And straight talk, when it comes to honest savings, we offer that too. Like right now, buy 3, get 1 free is back with no hoops and nothing for you to mail in. Buy 3, get 1 free now on the Nitto Crosstech and select American-made Cooper tires. Tires, service, and straight talk. Not just something we put on our shirts, it's our mission at Big O Tires.
Owning a small business means I'm passionate about what I do. I work hard for my money, and I know how important it is to find the right partners. That's why I trust Nationwide Insurance with my business's insurance needs.
Golden Rule Insurance with 8 locations serving Missouri since 1956. Ask for a free coverage comparison to make sure your personal and commercial policies are best for you. Golden Rule Insurance, your local nationwide agency in Osage Beach.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Coverage you need, people you trust.
The story is a Bible, written like a novel, easy to read and easy to understand. The story is helping people everywhere experience Scripture like never before. Carefully selected verses from the Bible, organized chronologically from Genesis to Revelations. Studying the story begins Sunday mornings at 10 at the Sunlight Christian Fellowship Church, located in the Keystone Industrial Park on South 5 in Camdenton. Be sure to tune in every Sunday morning to Love is the Answer, every Sunday morning at 8 on News Talk 1150 and 97.5 KRMS.
Your one-stop information source.
I listen all day long.
The Lake's choice for local news, sports, and weather. News Talk, KRMS.
9:30 is our time. 56 degrees on the way to a high of 68. Coming up next hour, we'll open it up to you if you'd like to jump in, or if you'd like to chime in on the conversation I'm having right now. Dan Wos, the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, talking about some of the things that are going on in these United States in regards to firearms, the anti-gunners. Was sitting here thinking, we were talking about all kinds of different methods, Dan, that they are using to try and get guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. I'm sure that you've heard about the, I don't know if it's a law as of yet, or if it was something they were at least kicking around a while back, that seniors who can't take care of their own financial issues, if they're having problems, then they don't need to own guns, because they're worried if somebody else has to come in and take care of their financial problems or their financial issues for them, that these folks should not be owning any firearms. And then, of course, as far as when people pass away, what they do with those firearms, not just passing them on to a family member or a friend or selling them to someone. So I guess, and these are just things when we're talking that I think of, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but any opportunity at this particular point to get their hands on our firearms through any means necessary.
That's the exact point I'm trying to make with this whole thing is, first of all, who determines that old folks are not able to to properly, care for or use their firearms. Who determines this? And you got to think about by making that broad, whether it's a law or whatever it is, determining that old folks somehow can't have guns, you are taking a huge portion of our society. Let me rephrase that: a huge portion of our voting society, and that generation, they might have, specific voting tendencies that maybe some in our government don't want. That's my thought on that whole process. And, but the real problem is who determines it. And, it's a very scary thing when you get into that whole thing, because you can take out huge portions of our voting society.
Sure. 9:33 is our time. We've got a caller on the line, Dan. Let's take a phone call. Caller, good morning. You're on KRMS.
Hey, KB. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
There are gangs in every major city in the United States, and the overwhelming number of firearms crimes are committed by gang members. So until Congress enacts gang control, don't tell me about gun control. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And that's just a fact.
Yeah, I totally agree. They take the gun-related deaths statistics in this country, and they use this number. And really, what happens is that those numbers come from concentrated areas, concentrated cities, and most of them are gang-related, drug-related, and there's a violent element in our society. But you're absolutely right. The gun control is not to control them; it's to control you and me and KB and all the good guys.
All right. Well, thanks for taking my call.
Caller, I appreciate the phone call this morning. Again, if you'd like to chime in on the conversation, 573-302-7000, 877-330-1150. Feel free rather to email us live at krmsradio.com. So if you are as concerned about this as a lot of people are, and I think if people are not concerned, well, Dan, that they definitely should be, because who is it that is in charge? The government is supposed to be we the people. That's how it was established. That's how it's supposed to be. But it seems like we're losing ground on that particular front more and more every day, with our government coming in and saying, well, we're here to protect you. We're here to look out for you. We're here to pick you up and dust you off if you have a problem. And that's not their job. And unfortunately, we're seeing and hearing these things like bipartisan gun control, a bipartisan gun control deal, again, which I hope the folks listening that own firearms, and even those who don't, will take some time to look at this and realize and understand, under the guise of safety, our government is literally taking our gun rights away.
Yeah, that's true, and that's why we have to be so careful. Don't give them an inch. And we talked a little bit about this military push to allow mentally, disabled, or whatever the term would be, mentally incapacitated people into the military. And I looked into that too, and I started thinking about it, and why all of a sudden would they want to do that? And I looked into it, and it's because enrollment is down. Well, why is enrollment down? My thought is that it's because we're neutering our young American males, and the enrollment is naturally going to go down. Now you tie it in with the mental, the drug issue, the pharmaceutical and the illegal drug issue that we have in our country, and we have some real problems that we have to face.
And that's very interesting as far as it goes, because you could have timed this any worse. If, I can't, we were sitting here and I remember when I heard where I was the very first time I heard about them looking at people to maybe get into the military if you've had, some mental issues, not serious mental issues, but mental issues nonetheless. And this was right after the shooter down in Texas that went in and killed the 26 people in that church. And then they come out with this story about the military looking at
contradiction, isn't it?
Well, letting these people into the military after you just had somebody who was in the military who slipped through the cracks, that they didn't pay attention to, that they weren't aware of, and now you're going to turn around and let these people in. It's almost like you're asking for something like this to happen all over again.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a real tricky one. I'm trying to wrap my brain around that one. Why, is the mental issue not quite what we think it is? Maybe it's not quite as bad. Maybe it is just a big fabrication. Or is it that they are desperate for enrollees? Who I don't really know, but it's scary, and it's scary that they can flip-flop on this issue so quickly.
Well, and the thing about it is, obviously now somebody has come to their senses. I think I sent you in the message yesterday about somebody being extremely drunk or extremely high, and now they finally come around and realize what they were doing was wrong, and so they pulled the plug on this idea. But, I mean, to even suggest something like that in the first place, you've got to be out of your tree. And on top of it, then, all you're doing is inviting more incidents like this to happen. Certainly, I mean, you're in the Army, or you're in the Marines, or you're someplace out there on the front lines, or even if you're in the Air Force or the Coast Guard or the Navy, you get somebody who's a little unstable, and you put them into an area where there's a lot of stress. I mean, obviously, when they bring you into the military, the whole goal is break you down and build you back up. Did anybody see Full Metal Jacket? I know it's a movie, but still, that's kind of the thing that comes to mind, where you get somebody in a situation where they may not even be in an area where there's any fighting, and they put somebody in there who's got mental issues, and that person can't take the stress and the pressure of being in the military to begin with. Nobody catches it, nobody notices it, and not only does that person present a threat to themselves, but to all those other people around them.
Yeah, it's very strange. I'm reading a quote here from Dr. Joel Voskin, and he says he was all for the putting people with mental issues into the military, and he said, mental issues. He said in some cases, mental illness might make would-be soldiers tougher and better as a result. I don't know about that. I find that kind of hard to believe, and I think that there's another agenda behind trying to get mental issue people into the military. Yeah, there's something else going on. There's another agenda there that needs to be uncovered, and we need to be very aware of what's going on here with the mental health issue right now.
There almost has to be, and it's like with things the way they are and the way things are setting up, you're absolutely right. I think something else is ready to come down the pike. Let's take another phone call before we have to take another break. Caller, appreciate you listening this morning. You're on KRMS. Good morning.
Good morning. Great topic, you guys. Mental health issues. Okay. Now they're accepting all these people with mental health issues. I care about the education and the safety of our children. I heard and read about the high schools are going to accept the ROTC program back to get these kids being trained to be able to get into the military again. Why would I, if I had a child right now, why would I want to have my child enter into the ROTC program and be subjected to people that have been entered into the military with health issues like mental health and schizophrenia and everything else? Thanks.
Thank you for the phone call. I don't know. Maybe, ROTC, I think there's been a lot of kids that I knew growing up that have been involved in the ROTC program. Never knew of any of them that had any major issues or any problems. I guess it's just, it's a way to kind of get kids focused early on in life as to maybe what they want to do. Not every kid's cut out to go to college. Not every kid's cut out to go to trade school. Not every kid's cut out to go into the military. But if, as is the case now, and I think more schools are starting to realize this, especially on the high school level, that there is a need for people to go into the military. There is a need for kids to be going to trade school. Not every kid needs to be going to college. So I guess as far as ROTC, I can't really explain that, but I guess that's the major reason why those programs or that particular program exists, Dan.
Yeah, I agree. And we do need kids to want to go into the military, and I don't think that they want to like they did in generations past. And like I said, there's something going on in our society. I think we're all pretty much aware of it. That is maybe causing these kids to not have an interest and not have that American patriotism. But just to be clear, as far as I know, that ban on mentally disabled people in the military, that ban holds right now. So this thing that they're trying to pass is not being allowed now.
Right.
So just to be clear on that.
Absolutely. 9:43 is our time. Our guest is Dan Wos, the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy. We'll take a break and come back and talk some more with Dan and take your phone calls on the Morning Magazine here on KRMS.
Commitment to quality. That's why Renner Supply Garage Doors has been serving the Midwest for more than half a century. Renner Supply carries Delden Garage Doors and LiftMaster openers, providing sales, installation, service, and repair on over 3,000 styles of garage doors throughout the entire state of Missouri. And Delden Garage Doors are made right here in the United States. Experience the quality of Delden Garage Doors from Renner Supply. Experience the Delden difference on Old Route 5 in Camdenton or online at rennersupply.com.
KRMS 93.5 Rocks and Dock Realty present Deck the Docks, a late Christmas tradition for the 7th year. Board the celebration at the Grand Glazed Bridge and cruise between the 11 and 21 mile marks. You'll enjoy light appetizers and live entertainment. On November 24th and 25th, board at 5:30 and start cruising at 6. Enjoy complimentary appetizers and be entertained by the Healing Box presenting Double D on Friday evening. Reservations are required, so go to cruiselakeoftheozarks.com or call the celebration at 480-3212. Proceeds benefit the Dogwood Animal Shelter. The first weekend cruise is sponsored by Mid-America Restoration and Renovation and Rich's Dock Company. Deck the Docks 2017 season sponsors are Reinhold Electric, Bed and Biscuit Pet Resort and Spa, Capital Paving, Tom Lime Remax Lake of the Ozarks, Slumberland Furniture, A to Z Home Services, Old Kinderhook, and Easy Street Dessert and Wine Bar. Some cruises are already sold out. Call 480-3212.
Discovered over a century and a half ago, Bridal Cave continues to amaze those who venture through it. As you tour through Bridal Cave, you'll see massive onyx formations, giant columns, and the one and only Mystery Lake. Bridal Cave's unique stalactite-adorned bridal chapel has provided a truly unique backdrop for over 3,000 couples from around the world. Bridal Cave is open daily, rain or shine. Guided tours leave every few minutes. Come explore the lake's favorite natural attraction. Explore Bridal Cave today.
Need a taxi in Lake Ozark or Osage Beach?
Too Fat Taxi.
Call 286-7237. They've been driving the lake for over 4 years.
Too Fat Taxi.
They're very reasonable. Too Fat Taxi. 286-7237.
Why have over 3 million guys switched to Harry's razors? Because at Harry's, we give you less. We make just one razor with 5 German-engineered blades. Ding! All you need for a smooth and comfortable shave. And we got rid of upcharges. By owning the factory and cutting out the middleman, we're able to sell our high-quality blades for half the price of the other guys. Ka-ching! Now we're dropping the half-price sound effects guy.
Wait, why?
Not everyone can give you high quality for a fraction of the price. Harry's. One perfect razor. None of the extra noise. As a special offer for radio listeners, get an $18 shave set with an added bonus for free when you visit harrys.com and use code 2525 at checkout. Just cover a few bucks for shipping. That's harrys.com, code 2525 for a free shave set offer. Again, it's harrys.com, code 2525. Please note, no sound effects guys were harmed in the making of this radio recording.
Hi, this is Captain Bob Zales II, President of the National Association of Charter Boat Operators.
This is Pete McDonald with Boating Magazine.
Greetings to boaters everywhere. Hi, this is Captain Bob May, your host and producer of the No Wake Zone Boating Radio Show. We're on the air every Saturday morning beginning at 10:06. Following the news on News Talk KRMS, we welcome you on board.
This is Jennifer Fike, Senior Director of Communications at the Coast Guard Foundation. Thanks for listening to Bob's No Wake Zone Boating Radio Show.
News, sports, weather. Hear it first, right here. I made the switch. News Talk, KRMS.
9:47 is our time. Thanks for joining us. It's hour number 1 of the KRMS Morning Magazine. Hour number 2 is going to be all you. It's Open Line Friday, starting after CBS and local news, as well as a check of the forecast and that in-studio Doppler weather radar. I'll tell you right now, 57 degrees on our way to a high of 68. Some clouds. No precipitation showing up on our in-studio Doppler weather radar. Want to put in a quick plug for my buddy Rick Bryan. He's got an auction going on tomorrow out in Tuscumbia. 493 acre High Point Farm auction starts tomorrow at noon, runs until 1 o'clock, about $1,500 an acre. And I'll tell you right now, they have got some great deals going on. And with a lot of these auctions, folks, if you're not paying attention, you miss a very choice piece of property, or in this particular case, 493 acre High Point Farm. Again, it's going to be in Tuscumbia tomorrow, starting at noon, running until about 1 o'clock. And what you need to do is take a look at BryantAuction.com to get all the particulars. BryantAuction.com. And again, that auction gets underway in Tuscumbia tomorrow at noon. Somebody is going to end up with a heck of a deal. You've got the farm, you've got all the acreage, you've got the rivers, the creeks, a wonderful place to call your own. And again, I will guarantee you that it's going to go at a very nice price. Our guest is Dan Wos. He is the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy. We're talking a little bit about a variety of different issues. And, you know, you were talking, Dan, about the follow-up to Good Gun, Bad Guy that you're working on now that you said is expected to come out probably in December of this year. About the media and how the media perpetuates all of this and how they look at things, and really the effect that the media has on people who probably don't have a good working knowledge of firearms and how firearms work, education, training, all of those things. People, they don't see and understand firearms because they've never really been around firearms, and we're not trying to impose our will on anybody or impose, you know, firearms on anybody and say, you know, you have to have a firearm or you need a firearm. If somebody isn't comfortable around a firearm, it's understandable, but at least take the time to learn what they're all about, and then obviously learn what the media is trying to do, the seeds that they are trying to plant as far as our thought process, and certainly what the federal government is doing in conjunction with the media to make it sound like all of these gun laws that they're coming out with or trying to revamp, and all of this information in regards to background checks and things, how it really plays more of a role in poisoning the minds of these people than rather than educating them or doing any good at this particular point.
Yeah, you know, I talk to anti-gunners all the time. It's part of what I do, part of my research and trying to understand more about how they think. And you're right, you nailed it. The truth is, most of them have never held a gun in their hand, yet they think they know about guns, and they think they know that more regulations on guns is going to do a good thing. They don't seem to grasp the concept that it's not. It's actually going to make the situation much worse, because the minute you declaw the cat, it can't defend himself. And I'm certainly not going to be declawed, and I know that patriotic Americans across this country agree with me. So what the media will do is they will get into the minds of people who don't know any better, people who can't critically think this stuff through, and they'll convince them that more gun regulations are the way to go. And these people vote, unfortunately. So, which is why we're in the problem that we're in right now, trying to defend our most precious right.
I'm not saying that you need to own a gun. I'm not saying that you need to
agree.
Any of that. I'm not saying anything along those lines. All I'm saying is I own firearms. I'm not asking you to go out and buy a firearm, learn how to use it. I have a firearm or firearms in my home, and the reason they're there is for my protection and the protection of my family. All I'm asking is, I'm not asking or trying to impose my will or my thoughts on you. All I'm saying is please don't allow the government to take away what I have because you're uninformed or you don't know any better. Take the opportunity to get involved. We've got a caller on the line here, Dan, And good morning. Thanks for joining us on the Morning Magazine.
Yes, perhaps more important is what are the goals of the people who control education and the people who control the media in getting the American populace unarmed and getting the American males to become so wussified that they will not fight under any conditions. Can you expound on the motives of these people behind the education system and the media?
Thanks for the phone call. Dan?
Yeah, well, I think it's obvious. I think he wouldn't have asked that question if he didn't see it himself, the caller.
Right.
And I totally agree. Yes, I think we all recognize that. There are goals, and you tend to sound like a conspiracy theorist if you start talking about it. But I think what's happening now in this country is people are starting to talk about it because it's becoming very clear. There's a push to control the people. This isn't about gun control. This is about people control. And there's always been a push from the left for global government, which is what we're fighting now, which is why there's so much kicking and screaming coming from the left. They don't like it. They want that utopia that they envision. And we, real Americans, we understand that, no, we're a constitutional, we're a republic. We are a free nation. We're not attached to any other countries, and with respect to government, and we make our own choices, and we, the people, dictate what our government does. At least we should. Mm-hmm. But what's happening now is that government's getting too powerful, and the people, we're having a hard time with that because they've convinced a portion of our society that American traditionalism is not a good thing. So it's a battle that we need to fight, and if we don't fight it, we're in big trouble.
It seems like what's really fueling a lot of the arguments that we hear in this day and age are social issues, and it's more or less I've got something. Or somebody's got something that I want, and so I'm not being treated fairly. So, I think we need to level the playing field on all fronts all the time about everything. And this word equality, or if you want to use inequality, when it comes to pay or it comes to the way we live our lives, we're hearing the word racism being constantly thrown around. Now all of the sexual harassment allegations that are coming out against everyone, and whether they're true or not, it's going to start to set another direction in which we go as a country, as a nation, because now everything that everyone has done in the past is coming back to haunt them. I mean, talk about Roy Moore, you talk about Al Franken, you can talk about any of these folks. A lot of this with what's going on in Hollywood these days, and more, Harvey Weinstein was just the tip of the iceberg. You've got, and Kevin Spacey as well, because you're talking about all of these other individuals that apparently were involved in sexually harassing women and kids, and a lot of the perverse things that have gone on in Hollywood that I think we've known about for years. Nobody's just really come to the forefront. So we really start seeing more of these types of issues, and the way that they're being handled, I think, is the key to where we're going to be headed in the future. People stepping in, and there's going to be all kinds of new rules as far as sexual harassment and various things along those lines, and how we treat women. And I don't think, it's almost like you're taking men and you're just hanging them out to dry. I mean, the men are the whipping posts, it seems like, because we're so horrible and we're so bad, and we're the root of all of these problems. And you talk about trying to almost, I guess, maybe steal the masculinity away from men, and why in the world are we consistently sitting here and listening to this? Because you can't tell me that every man is bad. You can't tell me that every man goes around and sexually harasses women. I would say sometimes you look at some of these people that we're talking about and the power that they wield, politicians, people in Hollywood and the like, and those people basically abused their power in order to get what they wanted to try, like the casting couch or whatever you want to call it. But it seems like the male of today has got a pretty hard road to plow.
Yeah, absolutely. And your caller just called it the wussifying of,
yes.
Yeah, totally agree. I don't know. I would have never imagined this when I was, I'm in my 40s. I would have never imagined this type of behavior coming out of young men when I was a kid. And you touched on the sexism stuff and the abusers out of Hollywood, Kevin. And what I've learned is anytime you see someone pointing the finger, you don't look at where the finger's pointing. Look at who's pointing the finger, because they're usually the ones guilty of exactly the same thing that they're accusing you of.
Al Franken, good case in point. As they said, he was preaching to anyone who would listen last week about, the treatment of women and sexual harassment and everything. And, lo and behold, here comes this photograph of him touching a woman's breasts.
Right.
And so you have to be very, very careful, I guess, in what you say and do these days, because none of us are perfect. We all have skeletons in our closet to some degree, and those of us who like to go out and worry about other people are normally going to be the ones that these people come after eventually, and they will find something out on us, whatever it may be, how insignificant we think it may be. They might see it as an opportunity to exploit it, and again, you just have to watch it. But let's quickly, with the time we have left, about a minute or so left here, talk about Good Gun, Bad Guy 2. It should be out in December. And again, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about where this particular book is headed.
Oh, sure thing. Thanks for asking. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. I really dig into the propaganda. I really dig into the lies, the media, the angry rhetoric coming from the left, and how they demonize guns and gun owners, and really give people, hopefully give people an insight as to how they do it and what we need to know to counter it and to stop them. GoodGunBadGuy.net or GoodGunBadGuy.com, or search Good Gun Bad Guy on Amazon. And the new book, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, will be coming out hopefully here within the next couple of 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, we hope to get a copy of that and have the opportunity, Dan, to have you back on to talk more about this particular book and certainly the media aspect of all this. And did I see right that Jan Morgan is going to actually run for governor in Arkansas?
We can't wait for that. She's going to do she's going to do a great job. Yeah, and she's got a ton of support.
Yes.
So very proud and proud to know her, proud to be her friend, and wishing her the very best.
Listen, Dan, thank you so much for your time, sir. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and we'll get you back on the program again soon. Have a great weekend and be careful out there.
You too, brother. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Right.
That is Dan Wos. And we'll take it up to the top of the hour. CBS Local News, hour number 2, PS 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 Local